King Charles makes a monumental mistake.
Prince of England.
This was a capitulation. A total unconditional capitulation.
Now you're allowing history to repeat itself. You have clearly learned nothing.
They have been played.
Prince Harry was like the cat who got the cream on this awful new podcast with Joe Marler.
Harry and Meghan demanded privacy. The palace gave them privacy. The cameras were blocked, the cars were hidden, the meeting was sealed behind the gates of Highgrove, and Buckingham Palace released no photograph. But only 3 days after that supposedly private royal reunion, Harry was back in public, laughing into a microphone, introducing himself as a Prince of England and discussing every detail.
Of course, this isn't a man who should be laughing along with anyone. He has just been completely shamed and exposed as a liar by a top British judge, who he then accused of being part of some type of conspiracy, meaning that even the establishment Times newspaper is calling for him to be stripped of his role as a counselor of state.
So what was private here? The conversation with Charles, or only the part the Sussexes could not yet use? Because Harry did not directly expose the words spoken inside Highgrove. That matters. He did not immediately reveal what Charles said, what Camilla said, or how the Archie and Lily reacted.
No details will be leaked about the private family gathering, and no photos will be released. Time will tell. Okay, time will tell, because we don't believe a word you say after the last 6 years, to be honest. But trust me, stuff is going to be leaked from this meeting. It might just not come until the documentary next year.
But the royal identity machine restarted almost instantly. The titles were back. The Prince label was back. The relaxed public performance was back.
Occupation.
Full-time dad. British Army veteran. Prince of England. Duke. But for today, I don't know. What do you want? Duke.
The timing is impossible to ignore. 3 days later, after all the setbacks, the podcast was released, and Harry was casually calling himself a Prince of England and a Duke, as though the entire week had ended in victory. But did it? The podcast created another question that Harry may not have expected.
Prince Harry has just admitted what we all have thought for several years now, that the gentleman is unemployed. He has no apparent job.
Before we continue, one quick thing. One thing I've realized is that most families don't have their important information organized in one place. That's exactly why I recommend the Family Vault, a simple printable and fillable organizer where you can keep everything from important documents and insurance to medical information, passwords. You'll find the link in the description, or you can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Now let's get back to today's story. When he was asked for his occupation, he did not name a company. He did not name a paid executive position. He did not describe himself as a producer, author, media founder, or corporate leader. He said he was a full-time dad, a veteran, a prince, and a duke. Those are identities, responsibilities, and titles. But where was the actual profession?
A very different spin on his and Meghan Markle's relationship and their future business prospects. And I'm sure puts a lot of pressure on his wife, because the dude apparently can't bring in any money.
Critics immediately seized on that answer and asked whether Harry had effectively admitted that he no longer has a conventional full-time job. That does not mean parenting is not work. Of course it is.
Number one he gives himself is full-time dad, which is a bit of a misnomer, as him and his wife have nannies. And Harry travels quite a bit without his family. So how can you be a full-time dad if you're not actually full-time at home? You can't do those things. But saying he's a full-time dad implies that the parenting role fully falls on him.
But Harry and Meghan maintain a huge California home, security, travel, staff, legal costs, business projects, and a lifestyle that requires serious income. So who is carrying the commercial burden now? Is Meghan the Sussex family breadwinner? Meghan has as ever. She has lifestyle products, media ambitions, entertainment connections, and continuing efforts to build a commercial identity outside the monarchy.
I mean, let's be honest, Brand Sussex is dead. Everything they touch is a disaster. They've got the political, well, I was going to say the social awareness of two of the most tone-deaf people in the world, but at least he's ticked a box, Charles.
Harry has Invictus, charity work, veterans' causes, and public appearances. But philanthropy is not automatically a salary, and a royal title is not employment. When Harry calls himself a full-time dad while Meghan pushes the commercial projects, The structure of their partnership suddenly looks very different. Did Harry leave the only permanent institution that ever gave him a defined role? Did he believe Hollywood would replace the monarchy? Did he expect documentaries, books, speeches, and streaming deals to become a permanent career?
And by the way, if anyone thinks that this man is the future of the British royal family, as he goes from his meeting with the king to doing goat yoga and making crap jokes and boasting about the fact that he still thinks he's the Duke of Sussex on an awful new podcast. If anyone thinks that is the future, with Meghan and the kids shrouded in secrecy, let me tell you they are wrong. Because this weekend, we saw in the most perfectly illustrated manner.
And now, 6 years after leaving royal duties, why is the most powerful label he can still reach for the one he walked away from? Prince? That is why this reunion matters far beyond one cup of tea. Harry and Meghan said they wanted independence. They built a new life in California. They promised freedom, privacy, and control.
For Meghan, it's achieved what she wants. It's once again re-established, and maybe not been seen, but we read the news story, that they're still part of the royal family. And that, I think, is what people find.
Oh, she didn't want to be part of the royal family.
Yeah.
She called them racists and everything else.
But Brand Sussex is entirely dependent on some sort of association. Hence the reason why when you see all her packaging for her as ever, all I can hope is that the jam, they had some proper jam served at the tea from Highgrove rather than the slop that Meghan calls strawberry spread.
Yet their biggest headline of the year was not an as ever launch, a Hollywood breakthrough, or a new global project. It was their return to the king. And Meghan did not simply walk through the front gate in daylight. Reports describe an extraordinary operation designed to get her, Archie, and Lilibet into Highgrove without being seen. Meghan, Archie, and Lily flew into Britain from a European holiday, while Harry was already completing his public schedule.
20 cars went into the Gloucester home of the King and Queen, Highgrove House, for some function to do with some organisation. And hidden within those 20 cars was, indeed, Harry, Meghan, Prince Archie. Is he Prince Archie? I have no idea. Archie and Lilibet.
A private Chanel luncheon at Highgrove created heavy vehicle traffic, and the Sussex car was able to blend into a stream of roughly 20 vehicles entering the estate. Think about that. For days, the British press watched Harry. Reporters tracked his court case, his Invictus appearances, his accommodation dispute, and every public movement.
By doing that, Harry has just completely undermined the argument that he has spent months making that the country is too unsafe for his family.
Yet Meghan and the little ones moved through the country almost invisibly. No airport photograph, no public arrival, no walk outside Highgrove, no clear image of Meghan entering or leaving. The secrecy was not accidental. It was the plan.
Where people have not seen them because they use the private VIP entrance and exits at the airport. These two are capable of coming over here in privacy if they want to.
Harry reportedly traveled from Birmingham to Highgrove after his Invictus event. Meghan, Archie, and Lily were already part of the private arrangement.
King Charles makes a monumental mistake by giving Prince Harry the audience with Meghan, Archie, and Lily that they have been so desperate for, but not all is as it seems.
Charles and Camilla then hosted the family for more than an hour, according to multiple reports. For the first time in 4 years, Charles was able to see Archie and Lilibet in person. That is the human reason for the meeting, and it should not be dismissed. A grandfather wanted to see his grandchildren. A father wanted to see his son. Charles is still receiving treatment, and time changes the decisions families make. But Charles is not only a father and grandfather, he is the king.
Buckingham Palace understood exactly what the Sussexes hoped to achieve and declined to hand them the moment.
Every private decision creates a public consequence. Every open door can become a headline. Every family gesture can be turned into a claim about royal status. That is why the palace controlled everything it could control. No Buckingham Palace photo, no balcony, no official family portrait, no public embrace, no announcement that Harry was returning to royal duties, no new role for Meghan, no suggestion of a half-in, half-out arrangement. The Sussexes received a meeting, but they did not receive a royal restoration.
well, Meghan maybe didn't get everything. But I'm going to be honest with you, Brittany, I still have massive concerns because remember, this is a long-term project that Harry is working towards. And this is the one-year countdown to Invictus. And what Harry wants and what Harry believes he has now secured, I hope and pray it doesn't happen, is that King Charles shows up in 1 year's time and probably shows up with Meghan and the 2 children too. And that's when the photo comes. So sure, Meghan didn't get it this time, but they are on the road there.
This was access, not acceptance. And that distinction may have been Charles's entire strategy. If he had refused to see Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet, the Sussexes could have said the king rejected his own grandchildren. They could have presented Charles as cold, distant, and unwilling to make time for his family. That weapon is now gone. Charles met them.
Harry and Meghan have been played. They have been played. And that is a good thing. The king gave enough to look like, okay, he's being kind. He wants to see his grandchildren. Although I still see it as a risk for the king and not so sure it will be a true success for the king just yet.
But if Charles had released a smiling photograph beside Harry, Meghan, and the offspring, that image could have traveled around the world within seconds. It could have been used to suggest forgiveness. It could have implied that every accusation, interview, documentary, and memoir had been pushed aside. It could have become the ultimate Sussex branding asset. Charles removed that weapon too.
It is confusing because Meghan will not accept an apology from her own alien father for one indiscretion, but is willing to go crawling back to the royal family that she said was racist.
He gave them enough, but he did not give them everything. That is why some commentators believe Harry and Meghan got played. They received the emotional meeting they wanted, but not the visible royal prize that could prove a complete comeback.
Meghan didn't actually get exactly what she wanted because the Duchess, or the fake Duchess, actually hoped that it was all going to be about securing an image. An insider telling him that a photograph was the real prize.
They got through the gate, but the world did not see them standing beside the king. They got private access, but no public endorsement. Yet do not celebrate too quickly. Charles may also have taken the biggest risk of his reign. Why? Because the palace can control photographs, locations, and official statements, but it cannot permanently control what Harry and Meghan say later.
Of course, I believe the real visit is because of Althorpe and because of the need for them to secure footage and stories involving the 2 children ahead of this documentary for the 30th anniversary of Princess Diana's death next year. We do believe that over the weekend, Archie, Lily, Meghan, and Harry were all at Althorpe. The Sun reported Prince Harry was seen leaving the ancestral home.
What happens if a future interview contains one carefully selected detail? What happens if a source suddenly describes Charles's emotions? What happens if a documentary uses the journey, the secrecy, or the little one's British roots as part of a larger story? The meeting itself may remain private today, but will it remain private next year? Reports say the Sussex family also visited Althorpe, the Spencer family estate connected to Princess Diana.
If she can't get to the royal family, it feels like she wants to get at least to the Spencers and Diana's sisters and, be seen maybe going in and out of Althorpe or be able to report that she has done. Because that's the closest she can get to any kind of currency.
Commentators are already asking whether that visit could support future material linked to the 30th anniversary of Diana's passing, although no official project using the reunion has been confirmed. That is exactly why the palace will be watching every future production, interview, and publicity campaign.
And it's also Netflix are hanging on to them. They're throwing them little tidbits and bones. I don't think Netflix are hanging around for Carly Fortune's book. I don't think Netflix are hanging around because they might buy some sort of war film that Harry and Meghan are producing. Would they hang around for footage of Lily and Archie at Althorpe? At Diana's gravesite, photographs? Oh, yeah, absolutely. That would be gold for Harry, for Meghan. Well, let's be honest, for Meghan.
Can Harry experience a private family moment without converting the emotional aftermath into public momentum? Can Meghan accept royal access that produces no usable photograph? Can they allow the reunion to remain a reunion instead of turning it into content? Because the first sign of the next phase is already here.
Full name? Henry Charles Albert David, Duke of Sussex.
It's a long one.
Yeah. All right, Jake.
Harry's new interview did not reveal Highgrove secrets, but it immediately placed his royal identity back at the center of the conversation. Prince of England! Duke! The man who stepped away from royal duty still leads with royal language when asked who he is.
But Harry, I believe, is now a 42-year-old embarrassment. I mean, making jokes about your private bits, do we really need to go there? Or as that one put it, pretending to have balls. No, mate, we just look at you. We look at you now and we cringe. We cringe hard.
And sources close to Harry reportedly said he was very happy, energized, and lifted by the family meeting. Of course he was. The court defeat had dominated the week. The palace accommodation dispute had become humiliating. Meghan had avoided every public appearance. William had stayed away. Then Harry reached Highgrove and finally got the meeting he had wanted.
During his visit to Warwickshire, Harry said, "I love being here. This is the highlight of my month. Actually, probably the last few months. It's very easy to sit in your grief, to sit in your stress, but guys, if you were feeling it, to share it." So Harry admitting in public that not all is good.
Everyone thought Harry won, but the real problem started after. A victory would require trust. Is there trust? A reconciliation would require accountability. Was there an apology? A royal comeback would require an official role. Was any role offered? None of that has been confirmed.
Charles is not quite the pushover that some people seem to think he is, nor is all forgotten, nor will it ever be. Harry and Meghan will never live down their treachery or the lies they told about Charles and Camilla, and that's before we get to their violation of William and Catherine.
What has been confirmed is a private family visit with no photograph and no further details. So why are some commentators declaring that Meghan and Harry got exactly what they wanted? Because even without a picture, the meeting reattached them to the monarchy.
Meghan understands the power of imagery better than almost anyone. A single picture with the king would have reminded the world that she and Harry are still royalty. That's branding gold. The Sussexes have painfully discovered that none of their post-royal ventures have carried the prestige or global attention that comes with a visible connection to the monarchy. This wasn't about family, the insider says. It was about access. Royal association remains their most valuable asset. A smiling photograph with the king would have instantly reset the narrative, reinforced their status, and reminded everyone that they still belong in the royal conversation.
For several days, the world was not discussing jam, cooking shows, streaming failures, or business questions. It was discussing Meghan inside Highgrove with the king. The royal connection delivered the attention once again. That is the contradiction at the heart of brand Sussex. One commentator bluntly declared that brand Sussex is dead. But if the brand were truly dead, why did one private meeting generate this level of global coverage?
A little bit unclear where Harry and Meghan stand because they're allowed to do this cosplay royal routine with impunity. And it is damaging the monarchy. It's confusing people. And Charles here, I feel like, has added to the confusion by meeting with Harry and Meghan and not making them capitulate to him, especially with a somewhat public apology about their deplorable behavior over the years.
Not even close to an apology, Brittany. I mean, think about what Prince Harry was doing earlier in the week. Slamming Charles's judiciary. He intended to do it from Buckingham Palace.
The more accurate problem may be worse. Brand Sussex struggles to dominate without the royal family, but explodes back into the headlines the moment Charles opens a door. What does that say about the Independence Project? What does it say about the California Empire? And what does it say about Meghan's commercial strategy if royal association remains the fastest way to restore worldwide attention?
Those close to Harry said the family's return was not how he wanted it. Diddums. If extra security had been in place, he wanted the children involved in some public events. So again, no intention of actually keeping their faces hidden if he got what he wanted.
Harry and Meghan may have received exactly what they needed in the short term: relevance. Charles may have received exactly what he needed too: time with his son and grandchildren without granting a public royal comeback. Both sides can claim something, but only one side controls the institution, the palaces, the official images, and the future of the monarchy. And that future does not run through Harry.
we need to have a change in letters patent or what have you to ensure that
Yeah.
titles can be
But
stripped.
it's
There needs
never
to be
going to
some sort of
happen under
punishment.
Charles, Brittany. We now know
It
that.
won't. It
It's
won't.
never going to happen under Charles. So all of this gets pushed to William.
Prince William did not meet his brother during the trip. There has been no public statement from William, but royal commentators report that he understands why Charles wanted to see his son and grandchildren, while still having no intention of rebuilding his own relationship with Harry. William's position is reportedly based on distrust, past disclosures, and his responsibility for the monarchy's long-term future.
William's furious about this. Why? Because it's a reward for the treachery, the disloyalty, and the cruelty of Harry and Meghan.
Could Charles forgive as a father while William refuses as a future king? Absolutely. Those are two different relationships and two different responsibilities. Charles may keep a private family door open. William can still keep the institutional door firmly closed. That is why the claim that this meeting restored the Sussexes is wildly premature.
Being welcomed back in just a meeting being announced, they're two very different things.
Harry did not meet William. Meghan did not appear at a royal engagement. The little ones were not presented publicly. The palace released nothing that could be interpreted as an official return. And commentators discussing the brothers are increasingly blunt. They do not see a Harry and William reunion coming. Harry can call himself a prince. He can call himself a duke. He can return for Invictus. He can speak warmly about Britain. But the man who will shape the next reign did not move 1 inch publicly toward him. So did Charles make a brilliant move or a catastrophic mistake?
This wasn't a victory. It was proof that everything has come full circle when you look at the lies and all of the chaos.
Maybe he neutralized the Sussexes' strongest complaint by seeing the grandchildren. Maybe he denied them the photograph that could have been used as branding gold. Maybe he proved that compassion does not require surrender. But maybe he also reopened a channel that Harry and Meghan will now test again and again.
I mean, let's look at Harry at this yoga, right? The guy is literally, I believe, completely delusional now, Brittany, because he thought this photo op and then giving quite an arrogant interview, I thought, to Joe Marler, where he says, oh yeah, I'm Harry, Duke of Sussex. You know, he's really claiming that royal title. But actually, Brittany, I thought the optics for Harry were just awful, really, because he looks a fool now.
Harry is expected back in Britain for Wellchild in September, and reports say another family meeting has not been ruled out. Does one private tea become a pattern? Does the palace face a new negotiation every time Harry returns? Will Meghan come again? Will the little ones appear at public Invictus events next year? Will Charles eventually attend? This is where the danger begins.
Could this all be a scheme, a setup to blackmail the king into showing up at Birmingham next year, which you've said yourself was the ultimate goal for Prince Harry, to have that royal presence and to give him that renewed credibility next year in Birmingham?
The reunion was not the story. What happens next is the story. Will Harry keep the meeting private when the media pressure rises? Will Meghan resist using royal proximity to support her public brand? Will anonymous sources suddenly begin describing the room, the mood, or the king's words? Will a future project refer to the visit without showing the meeting? And if even one private detail appears, will the palace conclude that the entire test failed? Because this meeting was a test.
Will it remain private? And that will be the acid test for the Sussexes and their sort of relationship with the extended royal family. If they can keep all the details quiet, then that might be a step forward in the way that they conduct themselves, going, and particularly relationships with the king, and maybe even down the line with his brother.
Not a coronation, not a comeback, not a restoration. A test. Charles tested whether he could see his family without handing over control. Harry tested whether he could return without turning the visit into another public war. Meghan tested whether she could enter Britain silently and accept zero public photograph. The palace tested whether access could be separated from acceptance.
Harry and Meghan's claims about privacy for their children, of course, we all knew it was complete hogwash, but now we have even more confirmation that Harry and Meghan are fully willing to utilize their children in order to help maintain their public profiles.
For now, the photograph did not appear. The details did not leak. The Sussexes did not receive a new royal role. That means Charles held the line. But the podcast showed something else. Harry is still emotionally attached to the title, the country, and the identity he publicly abandoned. He may live in California, But when asked what he does, he reaches for Prince of England.
The whatever he's taken to sort of the hallucinogenics have really messed with his brain that he's taken probably to help him with his mental issues have made them all worse. And so he is just this unemployed, in my personal opinion, loser who's just constantly trying to recapture what he had and not accepting his new life and trying to have a new job. I mean, he did it for a half a second, realized it was hard because, the real world is hard. And it's like, you know what? I'll just go back to this thing where I can do a little bit and look like I'm having fun.
Before we continue, I want to mention something really quick. Organizing your family's important information is one of those things most of us know we should do, but we keep putting it off. That's exactly why there's the Family Vault. It gives you one place to organize your important documents, insurance, medical information, passwords, and more, so everything is easy to find when it's needed. You'll find the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. That's all. Now let's get back to today's story. And after one of the most damaging weeks of his entire post-royal life, Harry suddenly sounded extremely pleased with himself. Why? What changed between the courtroom defeat and that smiling podcast appearance? Why did Harry look crushed one moment and energized the next? Was it simply relief after seeing his father? Was it the knowledge that Meghan, Archie, and Lily had entered Highgrove without the press catching them? Or did Harry believe that one private meeting had already restored the royal connection he and Meghan have spent years trying to keep alive?
The financial geniuses that are Harry and Meghan can now scurry back to the US and try to convert the royal stardust, with which they hope the visit will cover them into the filthy liquor upon which her sights have always been fixed.
He may describe himself as a full-time father, but the royal label still carries the power. He may claim a new life, but the old institution still defines the headline. That is the real pressure now. Harry wants family, status, purpose, and connection to Britain. Meghan wants commercial success, public control, and a global platform. Can those futures remain aligned? Or did the Highgrove meeting reveal that Harry is moving emotionally back toward the world Meghan persuaded him to leave?
Maybe a few years ago we would have thought that type of shtick was cute, but now we see Harry for what he really is. But as I say, there are a lot of people saying that this meeting isn't disastrous because in some ways it was Prince Harry and Meghan Markle having to kiss the ring. I mean, look at this picture tracked down from Prince William's jaw. I did quite like that.
The Sussexes entered Highgrove hidden among other cars. They left without a photograph. Harry emerged happy and energized. 3 days later, the world heard him call himself a prince and a duke. That is not proof of reconciliation. It is proof that the royal connection still matters more than either of them wants to admit. Charles gave them access, not acceptance. He removed both weapons, but he also accepted a huge risk. Harry and Meghan got the attention they wanted, but not the royal comeback they could display. William remained outside the entire operation. And now every promise of privacy will be judged by what appears next. So tell me what you think. Did King Charles outsmart Harry and Meghan by giving them a private meeting but denying them a public royal image? Or did he make the biggest mistake of his reign by reopening the door? Is Harry really content as a full-time dad, or did his podcast answer expose how dependent he remains on his royal identity? And can Brand Sussex survive without another visible connection to the monarchy? This was not the victory. This was the beginning of the test. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to Crown Clash because the next move could expose exactly what this reunion was really worth.